The day Greg promoted his daughter Jessica to senior director, he looked directly at me and laughed. That morning, I had just secured the Westfield retail chain contract worth $47 million. dollars. I had worked every weekend for 3 months. I studied consumer data until 2 in the morning. I missed my nephew's graduation, my sister's birthday, and even stopped going to the gym. My relationship with Daniel was hanging by a thread because of my absence. But none of that mattered to Greg when he announced Jessica's promotion in front of the entire marketing team. He made a gesture with his wrist, imitating my way of speaking. Everyone laughed. Some looked away. Jessica smiled. And I stood there, frozen, feeling my stomach turn. I had given up on social life to prove my worth in that company. I worked on every difficult account. But that morning, Greg decided that his daughter, who had only been there for 8 months, deserved the position I had been preparing for. And he did it while mocking the way I move my hands. My story will touch you. If you have ever been or felt judged just for being who you are, or know someone who went through this, you will identify and want to follow along because the ending is impactful. Subscribe to this channel and help give voice to stories that should no longer remain silent. My name is Nathan. I am 34 years old, and I work at Sterling and Associates, one of the largest marketing agencies in Chicago. I started there as an assistant 6 years ago. Today, I am an account director. Or at least, I was supposed to become something more. Every morning, I arrive at the office before 8. I review presentations, analyze metrics, study consumer behavior. I learned that to be respected, I need to be better than everyone else. Not just good. Better. Because there is always someone ready to point out any mistake I make. Greg Morrison is the general manager. He founded Sterling and Associates 20 years ago. He has a firm handshake, a loud voice, and that confidence of someone who never had to prove their value. He hired me because I had an impressive portfolio, but he never hid his discomfort with my presence. There are small things. The way he avoids looking me in the eye during meetings. How he always asks another colleague to present my ideas to clients. The jokes about my taste in coffee. Once, I suggested a creative campaign for a fashion client, and he said that maybe I should focus on more masculine markets. Everyone laughed. I laughed too, because that is what you do when you want to survive. Jessica arrived at the company 8 months ago. She is Greg's daughter. 26 years old, degree in communications, but no real experience. She was hired as a junior account executive. Within 3 months, she became a senior account executive, then account manager, now senior director. I never said anything. I watched her get opportunities I had to beg for. I saw her make mistakes that would have cost me my job. But she is his daughter. And I am just Nathan, the guy who speaks softly and gestures too much with his hands. My colleagues treat me well, most of the time. There is Marcus, who sits next to me. We talk about clients and campaigns. There is Linda from Human Resources, who always smiles when she passes by my desk. But no one says anything when Greg makes his jokes. No one protests when I am excluded from important meetings. I learned to be invisible. I do not talk about my personal life. I do not mention Daniel, my boyfriend of 2 years. I do not comment when everyone shares weekend stories. I just smile and change the subject. Daniel works as an architect. We met at a design conference. He has patience with me, but I know my absence bothers him. He says I work too much. That I am trying to prove something that should not need to be proven. Maybe he is right. But I cannot stop. 3 months ago, Sterling and Associates started negotiating a contract with Westfield, a national retail chain. It was a $47 million account, the biggest in the company's history. Greg assigned me to lead the prospecting. He said I was the only one with the necessary technical knowledge. I dedicated myself completely. I studied every Westfield store. I analyzed 5 years of sales data. I created 3 different campaign proposals. I worked on weekends, holidays, late into the night. Daniel complained that we never saw each other anymore. My mother called asking if I was okay. My sister stopped inviting me to family gatherings. But I was getting results. Westfield liked my proposals. The vice president of marketing, a woman named Patricia, said I had a unique vision, that I understood the consumers in a way no other agency had understood. I scheduled meetings, presented data, adjusted strategies. Everything was going perfectly. Greg started treating me differently. He called me into his office to discuss the account. He praised my work in team meeting. I thought, finally, I was being recognized. Then came that morning. Greg called an emergency meeting. Everyone gathered in the main conference room. He was smiling, that smile of someone about to deliver big news. Jessica was beside him, also smiling. Greg began talking about the future of the company, about new challenges and opportunities, about the need for strong leadership. I felt my heart race. I thought this was my moment. Then he announced that Jessica would be the new senior director of client relations, the position I had been preparing for, the position everyone knew I deserved. He said she had exceptional vision and natural talent for leadership. He said the future of Sterling and Associates was in good hands. I looked around. Marcus looked down. Linda pressed her lips together. No one said anything. Jessica smiled and thanked her father. She said she would work hard to honor the trust placed in her. Greg looked at me, and he laughed. Not a friendly laugh, a mockery laugh. He made a gesture with his wrist, imitating the way I speak. He said that some people are born to lead, and others are born to support, and that there is no shame in being a good support. After the meeting, I went back to my desk. My hands were shaking. I tried to focus on work, but I could not. I opened my email and saw a new message from Patricia from Westfield. She wanted to schedule a call to finalize the contract details. I responded professionally. I scheduled the call for the next day. But I knew something was wrong. I had worked on this account for months, and now Jessica would probably take the credit. That afternoon, Greg called me into his office. He was sitting behind his desk, relaxed, with that expression of someone who has just solved a problem. He said he needed to talk about the Westfield account, that it was time to transition leadership, that Jessica would assume the main contact with the client. I asked why. I had been working on this for 3 months. I knew every detail of the campaign. I had built the relationship with Patricia. Greg said that Jessica had more executive presence, that clients prefer to deal with people who have a certain gravitas. He did not say it directly, but I understood. People like him. People like her. Not people like me. I tried to argue. I said that Patricia specifically asked to work with me, that we had developed a relationship of trust. Greg interrupted me. He said I was being emotional, that I needed to learn to think about what was best for the company, not my personal ego. I left his office feeling humiliated. I went to the bathroom and locked myself in a stall. I wanted to cry, but I could not. I just stood there, breathing deeply, trying to understand what had just happened. That night, I told Daniel everything. We were in our apartment in the kitchen. He was making dinner while I talked. He listened in silence. Then he said I should look for another job, that this company did not deserve me. I said it was not that simple, that I had invested years there, that I could not just give up. Daniel looked at me seriously. He said I was not giving up. I was choosing myself, but I was not ready to hear that. The next morning, I had the call with Patricia. Jessica insisted on participating. She sat next to me, taking notes, smiling. I explained the campaign details, answered technical questions, presented adjusted metrics. Patricia seemed satisfied. She said we were on the right track. At the end of the call, Patricia asked to speak with me alone. Jessica hesitated, but left the room. Patricia said she liked working with me, that she trusted my vision, that she wanted to make sure I would continue leading the project. I said yes, of course. But I knew Greg would not allow it. Weeks passed. Jessica started attending all the meetings about Westfield. She introduced herself as the project leader. She used my presentations, my data, my ideas. But she always put her name on the materials. I started to notice other things. Emails where my name was removed from the recipient list. Meetings scheduled without my knowledge. Conversations that stopped when I approached. Marcus told me that Greg had been talking to other directors, that he said I was not leadership material, that I was competent but lacked executive presence. The Westfield contract was almost finalized. It was worth $47 million over 3 years. It would be the biggest account in Sterling and Associates history. And I, who had brought this account, who had worked on every detail, was being erased. Meanwhile, my relationship with Daniel was deteriorating. We barely saw each other. When we did, I was exhausted, stressed, distant. He tried to talk, but I did not have the energy. I said I just needed to get through this difficult phase. He said that phase was lasting years. One night, Daniel introduced me to someone, a man named Robert Chen. He was an investor, owner of a venture capital fund. He was looking for marketing experts to help startups in his portfolio. Daniel thought I should talk to him. We had dinner together. Robert was direct, practical. He asked about my experience, my vision, my goals. I talked about the campaigns I had created, the results I had achieved. He seemed impressed. At the end of dinner, he gave me his card. He said we should talk more. I kept Robert's card, but I did not call. I was still focused on Sterling and Associates, on proving my value, on getting the recognition I deserved. Then came the final presentation to Westfield. It was the contract closing meeting. Greg, Jessica, Marcus, and I went to Westfield's headquarters in New York. Patricia would be there along with the CEO and the board of directors. I had prepared everything. Every slide, every number, every argument. I knew that presentation like the back of my hand. But when we arrived, Greg informed me that Jessica would present, that it was important for the client to see the new leadership of the account. The presentation took place in a large conference room on the 25th floor. Westfield executives were there, including the CEO, a man named Thomas Brennan. Patricia was beside him. Everyone looked professional, attentive, ready to make a decision. Jessica started presenting. She used my slides, my words, my ideas. But she stumbled on the technical details. She could not answer specific questions about metrics. She mixed up important numbers. I saw Patricia frown. Thomas Brennan exchanged glances with other executives. Greg, noticing the problem, signaled me. I stood up and started answering the questions. I explained the metrics, clarified the strategies, showed additional data. The tension in the room eased. Patricia smiled again. Thomas Brennan nodded. At the end of the presentation, Patricia asked to speak with me privately. We went to a smaller room. She was direct. She said that Westfield wanted to move forward with the contract, but she wanted to make sure I would be the person leading the account. Not Jessica. Not anyone else. Me. I promised I would. I said I would be personally responsible for every detail. Patricia seemed relieved. She said then we had a deal. When I returned to the main room, Greg was smiling. He congratulated Jessica. He said she had done an excellent job. He did not mention my intervention. He did not mention that I had saved the presentation. We returned to Chicago that night. I was exhausted. I had not slept well in weeks. I had traveled, presented, negotiated, resolved problems. And I knew that, in the end, Jessica would get the credit. The next day, Greg called another team meeting. He announced that the Westfield contract was closed. He said it was a historic victory for Sterling and Associates. He praised Jessica's leadership. He said she had been fundamental to success. He mentioned my name once as part of the support team. Then he did something I did not expect. He said that, to celebrate, the company would have a party, and that during the party, he would officially announce Jessica as partner. She would be the youngest partner in Sterling and Associates history. I felt the floor disappear beneath my feet. Not only was I losing credit for the work I had done, I was watching someone who had barely worked become a partner, because she was the boss's daughter. That night, I went home destroyed. Daniel was waiting for me. He saw my face and knew something terrible had happened. I told him everything. About the meeting, about the announcement, about Jessica becoming a partner. I said I could not take it anymore, that I had given everything to that company and received nothing in return. Daniel hugged me. He said he was sorry, that I deserved so much better. Then he said something that changed everything. He said I should call Robert Chen, that I should listen to what he had to offer, that maybe it was time to stop fighting for a place that did not want me and start building my own space. I slept little that night. I kept thinking about everything that had happened, about the years of humiliation, the jokes, the exclusions, about working weekends while others enjoyed time with family, about sacrificing my relationship, my health, my peace of mind. And for what? To see someone else take credit for my work? The next morning, I called Robert Chen. He answered on the second ring. I said I wanted to talk about his offer. He seemed pleased. He invited me to lunch at his office. We met that same day. Robert explained his proposal. He was creating a new company, a marketing agency focused on startups and medium-sized businesses. He wanted someone with experience and vision to lead. He offered me a partnership, 20% of the company, in addition to competitive salary. But there was something more. Robert was also an investor in several companies, including one that was negotiating a partnership with Westfield. He knew Patricia. He knew Thomas Brennan. And he knew what I had done for the Westfield account. He made me a proposal. If I accepted the partnership in his new company, he would help me take the Westfield contract with me, legally, ethically, but in my name. He said Patricia had already expressed interest in working directly with me, that she did not trust Sterling and Associates leadership, that she was just waiting for an alternative. I could not believe what I was hearing. It was like a door opening when I thought all the doors were closed. But I was afraid. I asked if it was possible, if Westfield would really leave Sterling and Associates to work with me. Robert smiled. He said that in the business world, people work with people, not companies, and that I had all the relationship capital with Westfield. I asked for time to think. Robert said he would wait, but not too long. The Westfield contract was about to be signed. If I wanted to act, it had to be soon. I left that meeting confused. I went back to Sterling and Associates. I sat at my desk and looked around. The place where I had worked for 6 years, where I had given so much of myself, where I had been humiliated and ignored. That afternoon, Jessica stopped by my desk. She wanted to review some Westfield. She needed me to explain some things she had not understood. She spoke to me as if I were her assistant, as if all the work I had done was just support for her project. I made my decision that night. I called Robert Chen and accepted his proposal. We met the next day with lawyers. We created the structure for the new company, which would be called Chen and Carter Marketing. Carter, my last name. I would be a partner, not just an employee. Robert arranged a meeting with Patricia and Thomas Brennan. It took place 3 days later, in a private room at a hotel in Chicago. Robert explained the situation, that he was opening a new agency and that I would be the creative and strategy partner, that he would like to continue the work we had started with Westfield, but now through the new company. Patricia did not hesitate. She said she always wanted to work directly with me, that she trusted my vision and my competence. Thomas Brennan agreed. He said that for Westfield, what mattered was the quality of work, not the name on the door. We signed a letter of intent. Westfield would wait for the contract with Sterling and Associates to be finalized, but then they would terminate with a 30-day notice clause that existed in the document. After that, they would hire Chen and Carter Marketing, the $47 million contract, in my name. There was one more detail. I had kept copies of all the work I had done for Westfield, all the research, all the analyses, all the presentations. Everything was on my personal computer and on external backups. It was my work created by me. I had every right to it, and I would take it with me. Robert hired a labor lawyer. We reviewed every detail to ensure we were acting within the law. I had not signed a non-compete clause. I had not violated any confidentiality agreement. I was simply choosing to leave a company and start a new opportunity, and the client was choosing to work with me. The hardest part was waiting. I went to Sterling and Associates every day acting normal. I attended meetings with Jessica. I answered her questions. I smiled when Greg made his jokes. But inside, I was counting the days. 2 weeks later, Sterling and Associates held the celebration party. It was in an event hall downtown. Everyone was there: clients, partners, employees. There was food, drinks, music. And Greg's big announcement. He stood on a small stage. He asked for everyone's attention. He started talking about the company's history, about challenges overcome, about the future. Then he called Jessica. She went up on stage, smiling. Greg announced that she was becoming the newest partner at Sterling and Associates. Everyone applauded. Greg talked about the Westfield contract. He said it was the result of brilliant leadership from his daughter, that she had vision, courage, determination, that she was the future of the company. Jessica thanked. She said she was honored. She said she would work hard to honor the trust placed in her. I was in the back of the hall. No one mentioned my name. No one recognized my work. I was invisible, just as I had always been. The party continued. People congratulated Jessica. Greg walked around the hall receiving praise. Marcus approached me. He said it was not fair, that everyone knew who had really done the work. I smiled and said it was okay, that I was happy for her. The next morning, I went to Greg's office. I handed him my resignation letter, 2 weeks' notice as required. Greg looked surprised. He asked why. I said I had received a better offer. He seemed irritated. He said I was being ungrateful, that he had given me opportunities. I did not respond. I just said I hoped they found someone good to replace me. During those 2 weeks, I transferred all the personal work I had done. I organized files, closed projects. Jessica asked if I could train her on the Westfield details. I said she already had everything she needed, that she was a brilliant leader, as her father said. On my last day, I said goodbye to colleagues. Marcus hugged me and wished me luck. Linda from Human Resources said she would miss me. Greg did not leave his office to say goodbye. I left Sterling and Associates at 5 in the afternoon. I drove home. Daniel was waiting for me. He opened a bottle of wine. He said he was proud of me, that I had done the right thing. 3 days after I left, Patricia sent an email to Sterling and Associates. She informed them that Westfield was activating the termination clause in the contract, that they had decided to work with another agency, that the decision was final. Greg called me. He was furious. He accused me of stealing the client. I said I had not stolen anything, that Patricia had made a professional decision, that clients have the right to choose who they want to work with. He threatened to sue me. I said my lawyer was available to talk to his lawyer. There was no lawsuit. The lawyers reviewed everything and confirmed I had acted within the law. There was nothing Greg could do, except watch his biggest contract go to the company I had just joined. The news spread quickly in the marketing industry. People knew what had happened. They knew I had brought the Westfield account. They knew I had been ignored. And they knew that, in the end, justice had been done. Sterling and Associates suffered. They lost not only Westfield, but 2 other clients who questioned the company's competence. Jessica tried to manage the crisis, but she did not have the experience. Greg had to fire employees. The company that was celebrating became a company in trouble. Meanwhile, Chen and Carter Marketing was thriving. The Westfield contract opened doors. Other clients wanted to work with us. Robert's portfolio of startups became our clients. Within 6 months, we hired 10 people. Within a year, we had doubled in size. Patricia told other executives in the industry. She said I was one of the best marketers she had worked with, that I had vision, competence, and integrity. My reputation grew. The company's reputation grew. One afternoon, I received an email from Linda from Sterling and Associates. She said the company was going through difficulties, that Greg was thinking about selling, that Jessica had left to work somewhere else, that many people had been fired. She asked if Chen and Carter was hiring. I said yes. She joined our team 2 weeks later. Today, when I look back, I realize that those years of humiliation had a purpose. Not because they were fair. They were not. Not because they were necessary. They were not. But because they taught me something fundamental about myself. I learned that my value is not defined by who recognizes I learned that I do not need approval who do not respect me. I learned that sometimes the best response to injustice is not confrontation, but construction. Build something new. Build something yours. Being gay in the corporate world is being constantly tested. Every gesture is analyzed. Every word is judged. You need to be better than others just to be considered equal. And even then, there will be people who see you as less, as someone who does not deserve to be there. But I also learned that there are people who see beyond prejudice. Patricia saw my competence, not my mannerisms. Robert saw my potential, not my limitations. Daniel saw my value even when I could not see it myself. The $47 million contract changed my life, but not in the way Greg imagined. It did not make me richer or more powerful, although it helped financially. It made me freer. Free from needing approval from people who would never give it. Free to build a career on my... Free to be who I am without apologizing. To every person who has already been diminished because of who they are, I say that your value exists independent of recognition. Your competence speaks louder than prejudice. And sometimes the best victory is not proving you're worthy to people who will never admit it. It is building your own space where your value is evident and undeniable. Be strategic, be patient, but above all, be yourself without fear. If my story inspired you, if you've ever felt diminished or know someone who has, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, we share real stories of overcoming and resistance. And if you have your own story of triumph against prejudice, share it in the comments. Your experience can inspire someone going through a similar situation. Remember, your value is not defined by others' prejudice. Your talent is greater than any barrier they try to put in your way. And sometimes the best revenge is simply being who you are without apologizing. See you in the next story, which will be even impactful.